no, we want to learn about dinosaurs. And I was like, well, you can't learn about dinosaurs because you can't touch a dinosaur, and I can't show you I can't bring you a dinosaur. They don't exist anymore. Do you want to know what their response was? We can learn about it by watching TV. And I said, you're not watching TV at school. We can learn about bones and fossils. And they were like, yeah, we want to learn about bones. And I was like, okay.
8:45 rolls around. She'd be like, David, I want to go to sleep. And
Yeah, it's true. We've been doing this too long. I gotta go. Bye, guys.
Who am I?
We are Squawking Dead, a podcast pulverizing programs beyond the Walking Dead universe. Sometimes we give you news, sometimes we make you laugh, most times we go deep. I'm your host, David Cameo, and I'm joined by...
Cosmo Mom 09.
Lazy Gardner.
And Bridget. You can find me at youtube.com/@punkybrewster. That's PUNKYBRUISETER.
And today we're here to speak to you. We're here to regale a tale on Dark Wind's 6th episode of its 3rd season, titled Abidoo'niidee, which means, in Navajo/Dene, what we had been told. There is a link that you can go to pronounce Dene properly. I'll say it out loud here. It's native-languages.org/Navajo_guide.htm. It's very helpful. So I thought maybe it would help all of you out there. We released both the logo and art design for our coverage of Dark Winds. It's in our merch store. The logo design's default color is the tie-dye based on the time period.
It's really cool. I love it.
It works for some reason. I don't know why, but it does. And we just threw up the art design the other day.
We just threw up.
He just threw it up.
Like owl pellets. It's what's on the inside that counts. And it's on the screen probably if you're watching on YouTube or Spotify video. And the only way you can get the Spotify video is if you subscribe to our Spotify with your Spotify account. So the title is Abidoo'niidee, which means what we had been told. And as usual, we like to tackle the title before anything else because it is a good gateway into what this episode is generally speaking about.
Y'all know my feelings about dream sequence episodes. I was not thoroughly enamored with this one, and I had to force myself to watch it a second time. But what we had been told that priests are good guys and that businessmen are good guys. And apparently that wasn't the case in either situation. We had been told it was a monster, but it's really a man.
I would say also there's this idea that your father, if you have a father who's like around, is a strong man who takes care of his family. He does everything right. That hero viewpoint that children often have of their father.
Cops
And then,
are
also
heroes.
he's an officer of the law. And so to kind of work this out, that he too is guilty of something, well, it's all in a dream. So if we're taking it as fact, that he too is also flawed as a human being, which is something that takes us as adults a long time to realize about our parents, is that they are just flawed humans. We spend so much of our lives looking up to them that it takes a while to kind of realize that they didn't really know what they were doing along the way either.
Well, and then we also put out of our minds certain things that we may have seen them do too. Don't align with our vision or impression of them or the mirror that we have of them in our minds.
His dad says that in the dream. There are no monsters. There are just people that do bad things. More importantly, he added, and people that do things to stop them. If you're going to go monsters, that places you in the monster camp too. You did something that was good for you and your perspective, but for somebody else, it may not have been a good thing that you did.
Well, I mean, everybody's acknowledging that what everybody did is not a good thing. Were they for the right reasons? What does it make you? Even Sylvia Washington mentions in this episode that getting the justice isn't enough. You have to basically show it so it doesn't reappear. Otherwise, all you're doing is showing, quote unquote, let's say the world who you are. You're the kind of people who don't do the justice thing, which, you know, for good or for ill, the reason why we have a justice system is to show the community, like a jury of your peers. We've all agreed upon this idea that this person did wrong and there needs to be restitution.
When you're a member of a society that the office of the law does not treat equally and fairly, then what do? There was a reason that Joe did it. There was a reason behind it. It wasn't just, I'm mad at you. He tried to get justice the right way. He tried to go about it the right way, and that didn't work. So then what do you do? Again, it's societal because, like he was saying, they're not going to let me arrest a white priest.
Right. And I'm saying all this not as a moral judgment, but more as a value judgment. As this is the way things are. This is how you want to really rid the world of evil. Because on top of this, there's the idea of what we've been told is also the story of the hero twins and what we've been told about the creation of the world and how there were actual monsters roaming the stages of creation in the yellow world, which you got to see Joe's idea of what the yellow world was, which is the second stage of creation, or no, the third stage. The first one is the dark world, second one is the blue world, third one is the yellow world, and the fourth one is the white glimmering world.
The whole thing at the end when they were saying when the hero twins returned and their mom didn't recognize them because the monster slayer shone with beauty, it made me think of the Grey Havens, which is Lord of the Rings. Because what Frodo had seen and been through, he could no longer live the life that he had before, so he had to go off to the Grey Havens. And that was kind of the feeling I got at the end of this. The hero twins couldn't be the same people that they were before because of what they had seen and done, and because they had killed a monster or a person.
Yeah, and that's open to interpretation too. That's the interesting thing about this story is that various different tribes tell it differently. Some people will say that the hero twins became among the gods, basically. They glimmered into god level, and so their mother couldn't recognize them. Other people say that they were, like you said, forever altered because of the experience. They no longer are themselves.
Joe says it himself when he's talking to young Joe. When you take somebody's life, it changes you, and you can't go back to what you were before. While the twins were heroes for slaying the monsters, they also couldn't be the people that they were before because they'd killed somebody. It changed them in irreparable ways.
But like Bridget would say, trauma can alter you. In some cases, you can't come back. Probably in many cases.
The monster was awfully reminiscent of a white man. That's all I'm saying. The big top hat and the cloak. All he was missing was a twirly mustache.
Did you mean a specific white man or
Like a cartoon,
Right, the cartoony
bad
villain
guy.
white man with the top hat and the cape.
He ties her on the railroad tracks.
Exactly.
The girl who's going over and over again. Like
where
the
was
lady
the
from
vaudeville piano? Dun,
Yeah.
dun, 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 dun.
Yeah.
For Native Americans, white men are the monsters.
Not to say that that's where this story comes from. That's not
No,
what we're
that's
saying.
not what I'm
Just
saying.
that, like,
I'm saying
over time.
when they chose to personify the monster in the
Mhm.
play, it resembled what a white man would represent.
You had me at vaudevillian villain character at the railroad tracks.
yeah.
I mean, it's not like I want to disagree, but I think in saying that you're casting a wide net on people who may not agree with that. Well, we don't see them as villains, but they sure do rise to the occasion. That's fair. All Native Americans think that the white men are
well, I'm
evil.
not speaking.
That's
Oh,
what
yeah,
it
no,
sounds
I'm
like.
not
That's what
speaking
it sounds
for all
like.
Native Number one, I'm not speaking for Native Americans. I'm just pointing out what it looked like.
Yeah.
on
Well, and the
in
tuxedo didn't
show.
hurt either.
Right.
The tuxedo and top hat.
But in general, even from my standpoint, white people have been pretty freaking awful to the Native Americans. So
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought he looked very Jack the Ripper-ish.
yeah, that too.
That kind of dress reminds me kind of the era in which they were doing the Great Race for the railroads across the United States, which we mentioned because we talked about Hell
Yeah.
on Wheels.
Like the P.T. Barnum-esque.
And I don't mean like for the average citizen,
Right.
The robber barons.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
because I think it was kind of this idea that, well, if I rob someone, I have money, like this is how a rich person would dress. But like rich people didn't really dress like that. But you know what I mean? It's kind of that whole situation. But that's kind of the era that dress reminds me of, which makes sense then if we're talking about the white man being viewed as a villain during that time period, because that was a really rough time period for natives, because all of a sudden, I don't care that you're here because I need you off this land because we're coming through with this railroad. And this is more important than anything else. And also, I'm very rich and I have a lot of money, and that doesn't mean anything to anyone, but it means
Also,
something to
poetic
me.
license. If you're going to dramatize something, especially at a community play, dress it up, you know?
Well, yeah, of course.
Make it known, the stereotype of the arch villain.
The whole vibe of it is when the hero twins have their weapons are very large and oversized. And
Yeah.
one, it's meant to be viewable from the very back of a room as anyone who's worked in theater knows.
I think we all have, right? We've all worked in
right?
theater.
Yeah, we've
at
all
one
worked in
point or
theater. So
another.
we know everything has to be overdone and
Yes,
over dramatic so that
especially
even
face
the
makeup.
face makeup, but also gestures. You can't just gesture small. Everything's got to be big because everyone has to be able to see you. From
Yeah,
the
I
back.
did Sondheim.
So
Everything has to be big and over exaggerated. Joe, in that dream sequence, sees his father finally and acknowledges, oh, that's what happened. Not my father. No, your father. I found it interesting, the words of Henry near the end. He says, he was just a man. There's no such thing as monsters. There's just people who do bad things and other people who do bad things to stop them. But then he says something else, and I didn't write it down, but it was something to the effect of, oh, you're wrestling with this too, which is almost to say that even though I'm telling you this, it's not as though I still don't wonder whether what I did was wrong too. I'm still wrestling with it today. Even though a couple episodes prior, he talks about Indian justice, which is very
I thought
forceful.
about that too, but
It's what he has to tell himself.
after all of these years, it's something he's still wrestling with, but he can look back and say, yes, I did the right thing. He was molesting children.
Two things can be true. What we would say is the relationship between me and God for doing something that we did.
When you're watching this is all in Joe's head, except for the scenes
Is it,
when he's
though?
with George.
we don't know how much of this is actually true. Was there a priest? Did this cousin come to live with that? We don't know any of this to be fact. It's what Joe is processing during this dream, which, if you remember, he was hit with a dart.
Mhm.
This is a journey that he's taking that we're given the perspective to see. I want to trust it as fact that he's battling these demons and working through something, but we don't know that to be 100% true.
It would be really hilarious if he confronts Henry and he goes, what the hell are you talking about? And then I also want to hear him say again, Indian justice, which sounds like a great superhero name now that I'm thinking about it. No? Oh, Bridget's shaking her head. She doesn't like that.
This is why Henry did not want him to be a policeman, because he knew that at some point, as a tribal policeman, that he was going to come across this kind of situation where a white man was going to get away with something that was so egregious and so terrible that Joe wasn't going to be able to let it go.
As the case in this season, not even a white, well, sort of a white man, but I'm starting to think it's more cartel, south of the border stuff in terms of the drugs that are being distributed through the res, which is the same thing you're basically saying. Things come here to die or be distributed or legally disappeared or whatnot. Bad things get laundered in the res. We see this across different properties like Yellowstone and all that stuff. Consistently through Yellowstone, every year, something gets laundered through the res. Murder, trafficking, horse stealing. What's happening in this season? Drugs are going through the res to be distributed throughout the region. It goes in there, it gets distributed. Nobody can really trace it because nobody can be on the res. It's literally March 11th, 2025, and we had only just premiered our first episode containing the recap and the season 3 premiere discussion. And in it, just to compliment what we were saying, Sharon D, you guys were assuming a lot of things about why Henry wanted Joe to continue with education. And in this very episode, assuming the story is true, is the very reason why Henry was not all about Joe leaving the track of trying to get out of the reservation and make a life for himself that's outside of his police work. I think that's kind of cool that we keep linking things back to earlier seasons.
I just rewatched season 1, episode 1 with Dennis last night because he wants to watch it. When they show the very first murder scene where they murder Old Manso and Anna Atsidy,
Mhm.
there are giant claw marks on the door going into the bathroom where they found Anna. The same claw marks that we see on the bike. So
Oh, that's interesting.
High Pockets asks Joe, why did they bother to make it look like a bear attack? And Joe's like, because it scares the locals. They won't talk because they're scared there's magic or witchcraft tied up in it. I know we have toyed around with the idea of there being a tie-in from season 1, but after seeing the big claw mark on the door, I'm actually wondering
If that's not a factoid that wasn't insignificant.
Right.
We just threw it away because, oh, it looks like it was a monster, but it really wasn't. Oh, that darn not Benjamin So. Jeremiah Bitsui. It's funny that you mentioned that because in the order of operations, I thought of something and then you had said that. And then I listened to our recap of season 1 and season 2. as well as season 3 premiere, I thought of something when I was researching the idea of skinwalkers again, because one of the things that skinwalkers can do, and I'm going to tie this into season 1 too. Skinwalkers are people who, it's kind of like they make a deal with the devil for dark powers. One of their powers, obviously, that everybody knows is that they wear the skins of certain animals in order to assume their shape, let's say. And it could be bears, coyotes, wolves, etc. But another one of their lesser known powers, ready, Bridget?
I'm not, but go ahead.
Is the reanimation of corpses. Interesting.
Okay.
That is
Okay.
not something I've heard about skinwalkers.
I've got more.
Me neither. There's also a lot of misinformation about that,
Sure.
just so you know, out there. That's something that's often discussed because Appalachia has a lot of native population based on where it sits. And also there's a lot of ties to native ancestors in years previous. There's a lot of tales about things in the woods. And often when that happens, or there's something
It's the
quote,
Jersey
unquote,
Devil. Sorry.
caught on video, a lot of the time people will say, oh, it's a skinwalker. And I have seen some discourse online from natives to say, like, please stop using this as like your go-to thing to say. You don't know anything about the legend, and so it's not true. And so I just want to preface with that. There's just a lot of misinformation out there about that.
I've heard that term in general can be quite offensive, which is why Ash and Elena call them flesh pedestrians.
We haven't said that
yes.
in a long time. When was
Flesh pedestrian.
when would we
Flesh
have even
pedestrians.
brought that up?
I do not
But we have
remember,
brought that up on the
but
show before.
It has
Yeah.
been brought up before.
I'm like, what are you talking about? Flesh pedestrians? What are you, PC? Weird. If I just said that, that would have been, excuse me, David, they're flesh pedestrians. No, that's not it. Add to that. Let's just say that's a thing. But then, again, I listened to the recap, and one of the things was, hey, whatever happened to Frank Nakai? And if Frank
Yeah.
Nakai can't die, that rhymes. But the reason for him not being able to die could be something more.
I thought we had talked about that before, and we decided that it wasn't Frank because Frank was all about not hurting other Danae.
It could be the fact that Frank Nakai isn't really there anymore. You have to keep in mind that if we're to assume that skinwalkers are a thing, who would they harm the most? Other Danae people back in the day to do whatever they wanted to do as skinwalkers, let's say.
I mean, that would tie in with the big claw since he was with the murder in the first episode. I thought Nakai was a possibility a while ago.
Right. And then, Bridget, you'd mentioned, well, he could be messed up in the face because he was in the fire, blah, blah, blah. And so there's
well,
that.
that's the thing. He was, there was the explosion. You don't know.
And who's responsible for that too?
To that point, I will say we had determined that's not really who Nakai is as a person to hurt his own people. However, brain damage can happen. What if he's varied in some way now? And I'm not saying it has to be super spooky, supernatural.
He could also be very angry at Joe for blowing their spot and making everything fall apart in the first season.
Well, I'm not even done yet, because who is the skinwalker in this scenario but Ada Growing Thunder? I don't know if they found a body. I don't remember if they said they found a body. I think there was a lot of assumptions being thrown around, but the skinwalker, let's say, would be Ada. She enchants Nakai or Nakai's body, if you believe in the spooky, and he is kind of her puppet.
So I had said the same thing, Dave, but then it was brought to my attention that we see her die.
Did we
Or
see a
do
body? That's what I'm trying to
Or do we? Because at that point I said, no one's gone till they're gone. Everyone rolled their eyes.
And all of a sudden, Frank Nakai looks like Morgan Jones, and Morgan Jones doesn't die, and the cycle repeats.
No.
It all leads back to Fear the Walking Dead. Thanks, Madison.
No, yeah, thanks a lot, Madison. That's the new thanks Obama, by the way. Thanks, Madison.
Thanks, Madison.
So we start a bring back Nakai hashtag.
No, the shirt is Nakai doesn't die. It rhymes. No? It's like Cobra
Yes,
Kai.
Dave.
Dude, anyway, whatever. Joe is convinced because he shot whatever it was, the man that he assumes that it was. It pairs very well with the story about there are no monsters. They're just men who do things. Whether they're bad things or bad things to stop other bad people from doing bad things. It's just men. It's just people.
Could it be Shorty?
I did mention that what if Shorty was involved somehow and he's not who we think he is, and he's been able to now swindle Chi, and then what's that going to do to Chi? Because now this is going to shake Chi's trust in his gut and all of that kind of stuff that goes along with police work. But maybe it's Shorty. Maybe it's Nakai. You know what, though? I'm not letting go of these archaeologists. Something's going on there.
I had a feeling you'd say that. So who's to say that he's not in cahoots with them for whatever reason? And it could be because the archaeology is just a front for the drug running that's happening on the res. We've got 2 episodes left to wrap this up.
That would be wild. That's not even my thought. I don't even think they have anything to do with it. I just assumed that they found something worth finding.
That would be illegal for them to take out or whatnot.
And the boys were there and they don't want the boys telling anybody. That was my assumption. A tale as old as time. And by that, I mean a tale as old as we've been doing this weird archaeological plot line, which has been around since the 80s. This is like a story that's happened in other things, you know?
Well,
It's a
sometimes they
trope.
they veer into the spooky, like
You know, the very well-known archaeology trope.
obviously.
Yeah, they have yet to go talk to a college professor, but once that happens,
About their findings, right?
yes, once that happens, this is it. This
Why
is
does the
story.
archaeologist always wear kind of like the safari-ish, fedora-ish hat with the white band on it?
I don't know. They all
I don't
want to
know.
be Indiana Jones. I'm not really sure.
Why is it always the white villain with the twirly mustache? Who knows? It's just the image that pops in our minds. And also that vaudevillian piano. Who knew? We all agree that what this episode was trying to say is there are no monsters. And maybe there is no evil either. There's just people that allow themselves to do bad things and the people who do evil in order to stop them. But I did want to hammer a little bit more further on what Sylvia Washington says in the dream, which is obviously Joe's law enforcement side of him, which is to say, in order to really rid evil, you can get away with doing this because this person who did a bad thing has to be stopped. We all agree with that. But in order to really get rid of evil, what is the sunbeam? One of the weapons from the hero twins, if not the truth? Because the 2 weapons that the hero twins have is the lightning bolt and the sunbeam. Sunbeam is supposed to represent shining a light on the truth. You can't just use the lightning.
I see what you're saying, but they tried to show the truth. It was ignored. They even said in the story that the sunbeam didn't work on the monster.
Right. But what I'm trying to say is that both of these things have to be present in order to be valid. I think that's what the Sylvia Washington part of his brain, let's just say that, is trying to say, is that it'll keep happening, it'll keep coming back. You have to keep doing the work, your police work. You have to keep trying to find a way. But when all of that fails, when you've run out of every single option, yeah, you have to do what you have to do. And you have to take on the burden and the pain and the doubt of that decision. And it will alter you. And it is a sacrifice. And hopefully with enough time and enough sunlight down the line, we can start shining a light and ridding ourselves of that evil by shining that sunbeam and making sure that this doesn't happen again, or at least shines enough of a light for it to be a part of the system of justice of all people. So the 2 hero twins, one is called Monster Slayer, like you mentioned, Charity. The other one was called Born for Water. Water being the thing of life, the thing that sustains us. And you can't keep using the lightning. You have to use the sunbeam as well. Otherwise, you're just going to be going at it over and over again, and the monsters will keep coming. If you use both, as the hero twins did, basically, they slayed all the monsters of the realm of the Yellow World.
But they did it by throwing his own knives back at him. The sunbeam and the lightning bolt didn't work. They just bounced off of the monster, and it was using his own weapons against him was what finally killed the monster. So what they're saying is you have to be the monster to kill the monster. So Joe had to be the monster and take out BJ Vines in order to kill the monster that was BJ Vines.
I understand that. Like I said, exhausting all options, you still have to do the work. I mean, we all agree that Joe is still committed to finding the truth, doing things the right way. And when all the other options have failed, yeah, of course he had to go down this certain route. But what I'm trying to say is not that. That is actually not part of the hero twins' tale. They did not use Yaitso's knives against him in Navajo mythology. That is just a little flavor for the show. Do they change the hero twins' tale to kind of match what's going on in the show? Hell, in some tellings of the hero twins' tale, it's not a sunbeam, it's a rainbow. But for the purposes of this tale, sunbeam, light, shining, etc. This whole play is happening in Joe's head.
I think Dream Sylvia is wrong. That's just my personal view. If you've exhausted all available methods to get justice and it still isn't happening, all the lightning and sunbeam in the world isn't going to help you. You got to do what you got to do.
And this is why we have Dexter.
Who's also fictional.
I understand that in theory, but like if we were to follow that in practice, in reality,
Right.
It'd be
the
yellow
world
world.
would be utter chaos.
Yeah, it'd be the dark
Absolutely.
world. You still have to try to bring people to justice. And we're all agreeing that Joe had to do what he had to do to stop the bad man from doing the bad things, just like his father did.
For argument's sake, I'm going to believe the dream sequence and say Joe's father did do what we think he did. But there's a huge difference, in my opinion, between what Joe's dad did and what he did. So correct me if I'm wrong, because we all know I'm guilty of not always super paying attention. But besides the initial 6 people that BJ Vines is responsible for the deaths of, he didn't directly kill these people, but he is responsible for their deaths. Did he kill anyone since then? Has he hurt anyone
He
since then?
orchestrated the blonde man to try to take out people,
To eliminate the evidence.
and that entitled killing a lot of people. And then he himself killed the blonde man.
So it's not as big of a difference as I was going to say, but Joe's dad took out, I know we've said the word monster a lot, it's kind of losing meaning.
A predator.
But a truly horrific person who probably would have continued for many, many years doing
Unchecked. Right.
awful amounts of damage. Whereas, in my opinion, I feel like Joe did what he did to BJ Vines out of revenge, not out of justice.
Revenge played a part in it, but it also doesn't erase the fact that who knows what BJ Vines would have done in the future. If there was more land he wanted, how many people would he kill then?
You don't even have to go that far. I mean, think about it. He has the uranium mine. Native peoples want to have the work. They want to
Right.
have the industry to be able to provide for their families. And so what would it take to get them down there, have substandard
Safe conditions in
requirements?
uranium mines is an ongoing problem, even in
Exactly.
today. BJ Vines was doing just as much damage as the priest was doing.
They're both
Mhm.
monsters in very different ways. I would argue that there was revenge just as much in Henry as there was in Joe. That's his kin, this child. And now he has to worry, is it also going to happen to his son?
And he also felt bad because he didn't believe them and let it continue.
Correct.
So he had his own little bit of revenge there.
Well, that would be guilt.
He said he didn't believe them, but that he did end up looking into it. So I don't know that
Mhm.
there's like a huge amount of time that he waited.
He said 9 days.
Yeah, he said to Joe, I know that you think I didn't believe you.
Right. But he had to make sure.
I think what he was saying in the dream sequence, he didn't even look into it until 9 days after he told him. And then a week after that to look into it. And then sleeping at the courthouse, all the different things, talking to the judge, being on his
Mhm.
knees. And throughout every single part of it, probably kicking himself for not believing his son, like you said, in the first place. And maybe hopefully stopping some of those kids from getting hurt in the interim.
I just want to acknowledge that there are a lot of parallels between the two, which is why we were given this story, is to show that this is why Henry pushed for this justice. He also participated in a similar form of justice because he knew that the person who was perpetuating crime was not going to be caught and convicted in the way that would have been actual justice.
And it's cyclical. We talk about all the time about cycle of trauma.
Mhm, correct.
And this is just another cycle. But the cycle is going to end here because Joe Jr. is gone. There's no one for Joe to pass that trauma on to except Bernadette. And I don't think that's the case.
She
wasn't his son. I can see why he would have an effect on him, but I think the cycle is going to end because there's no one.
Well,
for him
the
to
only
pass it on
person
to.
that this would have had a long lasting effect on is now gone because
Sally growing thunder?
took her baby. And that would have been the only person in the household to then
Right,
pass this
right.
on to, theoretically.
He says this in the episode of protecting people. That's his job. We've seen him do it. He not only puts on the weight of that in life, in living throughout every single season, but to the point where there's this complete imbalance in he and his wife's relationship. As a result of this, he keeps this all inside and doesn't share it with her. Whereas in seasons past, he would, and it would suck. And she'd be like,
So,
well, that sucks for you.
Do you think that Henry and his wife had the same problem that Joe and Emma are having? Is that the significance of the cracked plate that his mom was pouring dinner into? If she found out about it at some point.
It could be. It could just be symbolic of a family being broken. Like this is him when he's young and his family. So the broken plate is there to indicate your family is broken. It could have been. I don't know that it necessarily says it 100%. It could just be your family is broken now. We're kind of hammering home that imagery. To Rachel's point, Joe did not murder BJ Vines. not technically.
No, not. in
Whereas
cold blood.
Henry did kill the priest. Like, if we're to believe this.
I don't see a distinction. You saying that he didn't murder BJ Vines is a delusion. You basically set all the conditions where he would die.
I think there's a hard line between murder and left for dead.
What is it? You telling yourself that you didn't kill someone?
Sure.
It's the
Yeah,
charges
sure.
brought to you in court.
That also.
It's not that I don't see what you're saying. It's just that it's almost as though you're saying you're not responsible for it. You are.
No,
and you're
that's
fully
not.
responsible.
No one is saying that at all.
Even Joe says in
Not even a
couple
little bit.
episodes ago that he just couldn't do it. The only difference is he didn't physically use his hands to end
Right,
the life.
yeah.
I just couldn't do it. That was a line
That he couldn't
that
cross.
he couldn't cross. Now, could he still let him die? Sure, let him die. That's
Sure.
fine.
But his father did cross that line. I just also wanted to make that distinction. Again, this is all under the premise that we're believing the dream sequence as fact.
I'll just take this even further. For me, it doesn't really matter, but clearly Joe doesn't see that distinction. Joe sees this as he killed BJ Vines.
Yeah, of course. It's why it's racking him with guilt. Yeah.
He knows that what he did was a wrong thing. He's not mulling over the fact that, oh, it wasn't
No.
as wrong as what my dad did.
It's
no,
the way-
same.
Yeah.
That's all I'm
well,
saying.
no, I understand. You know that if we don't mention that, there are going to be people that are like, I cannot believe that you're saying that he
Well,
did
to borrow
kill it.
a
I mean,
Bridgetism, they can go kick rocks. I'm looking straight into your soul. Kick rocks. It's murder.
it wouldn't be a
Joe
murder
thinks
charge.
so. Why don't you?
I would
I was
call
like, it wouldn't be a murder
it's
charge.
murder
Manslaughter.
one.
Manslaughter at best.
Manslaughter is
It's
the
coercion,
relinquishing.
kidnapping, criminal negligence. There's like
It's
there would
homicide.
be way more charges, and it might equate a murder charge.
They will
Yeah.
never
but
be able to prove homicide because there's no murder weapon.
The car was the murder weapon. He drove
He
him out
didn't
there in
hit
the
him
middle
with the
of the night.
car.
Okay, there's the law and there's also the truth and knowing what you did. That's
well,
the
correct.
thing.
Yeah,
That's
the law and the
takeaway.
truth are very different.
Yeah.
Enter
I
Sylvia
think that's
Washington.
the whole point of this show. Is the
There's
Yeah.
the law, the truth, and Sylvia Washington, right, Rachel?
Yeah.
She's somewhere in between, maybe.
Jenna looks spectacular in that dress. That's all I want to say.
I saw production stills of that before that episode came out because have you guys been on social media at all following any of this stuff?
A little bit.
No.
Because
Not a lot.
knowing
No.
what we know and seeing what we've already seen, they are showing scenes from episodes way into the future. And
That's always how that goes, though.
I know, but but now that you have like the curtain is in, we can see backstage and stuff, it is a lot.
I know. I did see a preview because obviously I watch AMC stuff. Obviously, I'm constantly watching The Walking Dead. I saw an ad for it, and it showed so far into the season, and I was like, "That's weird." But again, I was like, "This always happens, though." I'm sure I'm just oblivious to it most of the time.
Yeah, and here I am trying to distinguish whether, okay, I'm trying to have that brain of, oh, if I didn't know anything, is this something? And I don't know necessarily because I didn't really
I
put too
don't
much
know that I would, but people on the internet are like, "Oh, I saw this. Can you believe that they're gonna do this in the season?" Like they're
It's like, you're
already making
absolutely wrong.
assumptions. I'm
Exactly.
sure. I'm sure they're already making assumptions.
But one of the unit stills, though, that I saw recently was of Jenna Elfman. Actually, I think it was Jenna herself that posted that photo of her in that dress. Jenna, excuse me.
We
Jenna.
have no idea what it is.
But she looks great, and your mind goes to places.
It was just nice to see her to dance
David,
in a
ew.
show because that's
She is a dancer,
where
right?
she's a dancer.
She did a
Yeah.
dance sequence in Shifting Gears. She did a free dance.
It's just cool to see that she gets to like stretch that muscle still, and I'm sure she just loves that. I can only imagine.
With Zahn,
And
too,
you can-
which is also pretty
yeah,
cool.
I know. To dance with Zahn.
Well, I don't know who that's more a treat for because I was thinking like Zahn is like,
Is Zahn like, oh man, I get to dance with Jenna Elfman?
hubba. Man, but what a treat to be able to do that in a show like this too.
I have
It's
to
so
say,
heavy.
and you can cut this because this could be viewed as maybe insensitive, I think, towards Jenna and not towards native peoples.
Are you thinking about the height difference?
Oh no, but
'Cause I was thinking that-
wowza. She was in flats. I looked at the shoes.
And she was still way taller than he was.
Oh yeah, I was like, oh man, Zahn
As a
is
man of a
short.
certain height, I can appreciate
Good
that.
for you, Zahn,
She's tall,
for
too,
not
though.
insisting that they give him platforms
Lifts.
or lifts to be in.
She looked really beautiful, and I'm just happy to see a woman age.
Yes.
That's all I have to say
Yeah.
about it. She's aging and she's not fighting it, and that is just so beautiful to see.
Is she? Because she's timeless.
Well, I mean, she is. She looks phenomenal.
Not a day older. She looks phenomenal.
She looks
You realize
phenomenal.
I can't say anything in this conversation at all.
Why?
It's just nice to see someone not have their eyes like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
call it
Mhm.
madamizing because you remember Waylon and Madam. She was
Mhm.
the marionette.
Where's this from?
Waylon and Madam was an act in the 70s. She was like a marionette, but her
Yeah.
face is like all bulbous and stretched back. And like that is what women, please stop doing that to yourselves, ladies. I know you
Yeah.
think you're making yourself look better, but you are not.
Well, we've talked
It's
about
just
this
nice
before.
to see this new thing in Hollywood where we're seeing like Pamela Anderson showing up without makeup at many different places, barefaced, which it's always like kind of startling to see, not because it's bad, but just because
You're a
you're at a
person.
red carpet event and you have no makeup on. How cool. So it's just nice to see this kind of like new movement of women being like, no, I'm good. I can be my age.
Mhm.
It's just nice to
You're
see that.
supposed to age naturally like the Swamp Witch. And that's what we're doing. So let it
Swamp
happen.
Witch? What's Swamp Witch? Am I being ignorant
No,
again?
I'm just saying.
What?
Or just like in general?
Women are supposed to age naturally and enter our swamp witch period where we don't have to wear
Oh,
makeup
okay.
and all that crap all the
This
time.
is like the white vaudevillian villain. Okay, I get you. That's fine.
I was trying to figure out why they chose that look in particular. And I figured it's because, what do you figure Joe is? In his 40s? From the 70s back 40 years.
I would say
What I'm
late
saying
40s.
is he was a teenager. He's 12, 13, 14 years old coming up in the 40s. And that's what she was wearing was 40s screen siren, the dress and the hair.
Well, the
Yes.
cotillions when you're a kid, that sort of thing.
That was what her look was based on, I think, was young Joe's age at the time of the dream.
To pull
timing.
from where all these memories are
Right.
coming from.
Well, and then the Catholic
Yeah.
schools would have had the dances, maybe. I don't
The
know.
other part of that is that with just her look, her height, her blonde hair, her complexion, I think would maybe be reminiscent of a movie starlet to
Exactly.
Joe's mind.
Exactly. That's what I was going for. A 40s
I want
movie
to go
starlet.
so much further with this because you know how like sometimes when you're because we've said it all season how the fly sound reminds him of BJ Vines. He can't get a moment of rest, but also associated with that is Sylvia Washington. It's kind of like the Negan Maggie thing. Maybe there's a not a hate bang per se between Joe Lee
Don't do it
Porn and
again,
Sylvia
Dave.
Washington.
I hate it every time.
But maybe there's like a little fear boner there. I don't know. It's,
A fear
a little fear boner. Like,
No, Dave.
Oh.
No.
a little annoyance bang. Like maybe there's a. It's his dream sequence, not mine, but now it is. So I'm okay with it. Zahn, what do you think? Write me. He's like, yeah, but I saw him in an interview, by the way. He's like, no, but I prefer Gilligan's. He was talking about Gilligan's Island throughout this entire red carpet interview because they were asking what show would you wanted to be part of, and he goes, yeah, there's Gilligan's Island, and then every answer
After that was about Gilligan's Island.
it's like, yeah, I really want to act alongside Ginger Rogers,
He like finally gets to express his love for Gilligan's Island.
is his
He's not
every
going to let
passion.
anyone stop him.
I fell in love with him in that moment forever because of it. And then he started singing the theme song. No, I'm kidding. He didn't do that. But
Oh, I was
Wouldn't
like,
you
wow,
pay
this
to
really
hear
went
it?
off
I
the
gotta look
rails.
this up. I gotta go find this.
it was like the premiere event. It was in New York City, by the way, too, because that's where they were. And I was like, oh shoot! And me and my
Dave,
dumb
you should've
luck.
been there.
I know, but here nobody invited me to with my little
Who do you
vaudevillian
think
tuxedo.
you are? They're going to invite you.
Listen, I had
We
the
have
tuxedo.
to wedge our way into everything. That's how we've gotten into anything cool is by just elbowing our way in there.
It's true. Well,
Yeah,
and it was
that's
probably
happened.
a long time ago too. I have no idea, but here we are. Fear boner aside, or annoyance boner, fly boner. That's what it would be, a fly boner.
What?
I
thought
hate
Sharon did
everything that
particularly.
you're saying.
I don't. Dun-dun-dun-dun-dun, it's so sit right.
Wow.
Okay, let's talk about the priest. Because who is the priest in his mind being played by, other than Robert Nepper?
He was on Criminal Minds.
Prison Break.
He was.
Every
He's
single
like-
bad guy
He's
everywhere.
that guy.
But he's so good. He's the best villain. He's like the fan favorite when it comes to villains.
He's
got
not
that
that guy.
face.
He's the guy.
Got that face. What I like about him the most is that usually when they give him the bad guy role, as he always gets, is those moments of him breaking through and there being a little bit more nuance than just he's just so annoying. He's just such a bad guy. And there's a little of that in this episode.
It's the point where they stop fighting and
Yeah.
it's like the pause in the fight.
Well, I mean, he's defeated him, quote unquote, and then he gets up.
He like turns and he like sits on the edge of and
That's not what happened. Or whatever
yeah,
it
and
was.
he's like, you know that you didn't kill me. It's very much
You
like
know what
all of
it
a
is.
sudden that's the priest you would have come to expect. This nice kind of like softer side all of a sudden peeks out, and you're like, wait, this is weird.
There's something deliberate in that choice to do that. Well, that we're not born this way, too. That we were something before.
I mean, you and I disagree fundamentally on that, but
oh, yeah.
yeah.
I forgot. I'm stupid.
Very
It's so
fundamentally,
dumb.
we disagree on that. But I think it's to showcase the nuance between a predator and their victim. It's not like victims are just bumbling around stupid idiots that are like, well, I don't know, I just trusted him. That's not it. The villain in this story is able to convince you that he's a good guy. So seeing this softer side of him, I think, is to give you some of that nuance that he was in a trustworthy position. He maybe was really kind to the kids, maybe kind when other people in that school were not. But that would have just been a device to get you to come to him so that he didn't have to work as hard to attract you.
We
and, like,
get it,
lure
Bridget.
you in.
Evil exists. Okay, fine.
Mm.
On the other side of things, I think it also elucidates exactly what the message is in this episode. It is just people doing bad things.
Correct. You'd have more than one facet. There can be a predator out there who's a really good father to his kids. Does that make any sense to my brain? Not at
No,
all.
Right. And
Not
yet,
at all.
that's a real thing, which is something that we've said about this show throughout. There is a heaping teaspoon or tablespoonful of realism to all of this. For the largest part in his dream sequence, yeah, everybody's playing an archetype. The twirling mustache villain that Big A plays, the guy who plays a guy at City, etc. Ryan Big A. But then all of a sudden it starts changing a bit. Even Sylvia Washington says the thing that he doesn't want to hear. These people, they're going to get away with it. A priest, egads, not him. A businessman, they're respectable people in community. She was saying that really more to say, convince the world that these people are worth going after. They're going to be harder to go after, and you did what you had to do, sure. This is why I was saying it's going to take a lot more to put down some of these people, regardless of race or whatever, because they represent a figure that is not often challenged. And when they are challenged, just like Henry said, oh, he's going to get out on bail. Convince the world. That's how you get rid of evil. In lieu of that, you do have to do what you have to do. It doesn't make you a monster. It means that you had to sacrifice to get to the point. I wanted to say something else, though, too. Throughout this entire episode, I kept thinking about what Budge DeBaca says to Bernadette across the table. People are just trying to do the best that they can with the information that they have. Throughout this whole episode, I kept thinking that. Henry did the best that he could with the information that he got from Joe at the time. He didn't believe him at first, and it took him a while to come around. I'm sure he's been kicking himself for years, convincing himself that he got the justice that he needed. But even he, in his dream sequence, again, if we're to take this as a conversation that they would have had, or whether this thing was actually true, even he, in his mind, is still unsure that he 100% is in the righteous corner. There's no doubt that he had to do what he had to do in his mind, but that he's forever altered as a result of it. So when you mention Shorty Bowlegs as the possible creature in the robes, it may not be as black and white as we think it is. That, yeah, maybe he had to participate in whatever this is. It could be the drug trade. It could be the archaeology find. Could be both, if the archaeology thing is a front. But that he would have been coerced or felt pressured to take part in this. Money must be tight on the res. Maybe I'm making assumptions, but it is a struggle. I'm not speaking out of school.
I'm just going by the television show. Look at the conditions in which these people are living. Joe has the nicest house by far, and I'm sure that's just because he is a policeman and has the income. Whereas most of the people on the res, they live in Hodges and Hogans.
Or trailers.
Money is scarce on the res.
Yeah, there's no indoor plumbing. They're traveling. Remember the woman who's like, I had to walk so far to get that water and now you wasted it? What's the second
It was the
season? It's the
blonde
blonde man. He like ends up on her farm and she's like swatting at him because she's so angry that he went and took the water because it took her all day to get the water there. These are third world living conditions if we're comparing it to other places. Also did not have running water, which again, running water was not across the United States until recently. There wasn't electricity and running water still in parts of the
You mean
United
like
States.
indoor plumbing is
Yeah,
more to the
until
point.
what, within the last 10, 15 years?
There's probably
Yeah.
still pockets like in Appalachia and
Probably.
places like that. But I mean, I would say on the whole, most Americans had indoor plumbing and
Yes.
such by the 60s. But
It wasn't the norm, but was it still happening? Yeah, definitely. Which is wild to think of. look at this comparison with people landing on the moon.
That is great.
And in that season, we're talking about going to get your water.
But that's two things at once, right? Because you can see that and feel two simultaneous things. Seeing people go to the moon means that one day we'll be lifted up and we can shoot for the stars.
It means the moon landing was fake. Yeah, I know.
Well, for some.
Just the first one, though.
Just the first one, Bridget. We keep saying that.
I don't.
Was staged.
It's no, I don't think so.
Okay.
Anybody here think the Earth is flat too?
We're not going there.
No,
We're not going there.
No, I'm not an idiot.
She just loves her little conspiracy theory. Sharon, you should know better. But anyway, the point is that you can feel two simultaneous things. While we're going to the moon, I'm still stuck here. But you can also think,
how can the Earth be flat if it's also hollow? You're welcome.
Well, it has a hollow center, like a cookie or something.
Well, yeah, like in Godzilla. Like in Godzilla.
What?
I know.
Okay. You could have two simultaneous thoughts. One is I'm still here while they are going to the moon. But then you could also think, well, if they can go to the moon, maybe we can look towards a future where a rising tide lifts all boats, that sort of thing. That maybe the future could be something that we can behold.
Right. I think white people visiting the reservation probably feel like they're on the moon. That's how far removed res life is from regular American life.
You're saying white people feel that, or
when white people go to the res, it's like being on the moon to them because it's so different.
Me leaving New York City feels like I'm traveling a different planet but that's just my bias, I'm used to concrete everywhere.
What are those green things over there? No!
Oh, those look exactly like those plastic trees that I see everywhere. We know trees, they just don't look as great and big and just taking over everywhere. Ugh, gross.
Stupid oxygen makers.
Yeah, we don't need that. I have air conditioning, duh. And also the Earth is hollow.
And flat.
It's filled with delicious jelly.
Ew.
No. Flat is too far. Flat is too far.
No, does the jam go if it's flat? Did you ever think of that?
Peanut butter and jelly sandwiches are flat.
Well, they're not two-dimensional. They've got layers.
I refuse to discuss this.
I don't want it. I don't like
cretins.
I don't like it.
You know how we know the world isn't flat? Because a cat hasn't knocked a glass off of it yet.
How do you know? You didn't see it.
Yeah, what are you at every edge of the world?
Yeah. What if cats are afraid
all
of the edge of the
time,
world?
simultaneously, at every edge?
Rachel's like, I hate this, but I'm too nice to tell them that I hate this.
No, she tells us with her facial expressions.
Yeah, I'm just being the Rachel whisperer.
The Rachel whisperer.
10 o'clock, guys. I gotta go to bed now.
See? I hate the tide this is turned into. Even though Lee Point says that this person is obviously leaving a bloody trail after being shot 1 billion times throughout this episode, maybe you see the trail, you see the bloody hand.
George was that great of a shot.
No, it doesn't.
He was
look like
also
it.
running,
and I also feel like the handprint was supposed to be Joe's. That was like a physical reminder and remainder from his hallucination. Remember, he kept looking at his hand, and his hand was bloody. All the stuff with the blood, and then he laughed when he got to the handprint.
It was weird the way that they held on it, and this is just me being like, I don't understand what's happening. I have no media literacy. I was like, did this happen in a previous season? Like, is this one of the same areas where he like fought somebody else and like put his hand on a boulder?
The blonde man?
Yeah, when he dragged the blonde man along. That's what I thought. But again.
But then the laughing also indicates that, throughout this entire season, I've been afraid that this is supernatural and this is a relief. But
that was the other part was like, it's a human.
Yeah.
I thought it was a monster. It's a human as a handprint.
And he keeps telling himself that it isn't supernatural, even though he keeps being shown evidence, the flickering lights and all that stuff. And, and the figure in black, when he pulled back the curtain and it was Gordo Senna, but it wasn't Gordo Senna. The question remains, do you agree with Joe? Do you think this is a monster or a man?
I think it's a man.
Or is it just George Nakai?
A little bit of column A, a little bit of column B.
When you get a close-up look at his face, it looks like a skeleton, though. It legit looks like a monster. Either his face is really messed up in real life, or he's wearing some kind of mask.
And if you're hearing with the episode with headphones, he gets shot, and there's this gargly sound. It's like, I've been shot, but he doesn't say that. But he's like, but it's not a human voice. It's like his vocal cords have been burned, perhaps. I don't know. I'm not saying this way or that, but
maybe.
I'm not. I don't know. That's where the show loves to keep us, between not seeing Ada growing Thunder's body. Maybe George Takei's body has disappeared. I don't know.
Did you just say
Spooky
George
witch lady.
Takai? I don't think he was
No.
on this show.
Oh my! Well, that would be a great voice for this creature.
Like, shoot him, bang! Oh my!
Set phasers to ouch.
Oh my
no!
gosh.
It's so cheesy.
You're welcome. He calls Chi in. She's already on the way to the scene after he radioed Natalie. He took his whole trailer with the pickup truck down the highway, and he's saying he's stabbed half a mile from the truck. Suspect on foot, 6'2". He's got that gauge. Dark clothes and hood, gunshot in the right shoulder. He knows that much. Gargly. She's en route. He's not a monster, Jim. It's a man. It's just a man. We disagree. I'm sure we disagree with Mr. Lieutenant George Leaphorn. I'm sure we disagree, but that's fine. We'll see in the next 2
What?
episodes.
Disagree with what? I just said it's a man.
Well, I mean, Bridget doesn't agree.
I said a little bit of column A, a little bit
That's
of
a
column
disagreement.
B.
And
Because inside every man is a monster, Dave.
I love how Dave is just
monsters don't
like, we
exist.
all think this is an actual monster. We all said it. All of us.
all of us
Disregard everything that was just said. We all think it's a monster.
I still
It's
think
George
he's an
Takei.
ancestor.
said, right. See? We all disagree.
Yep.
And if you happen to disagree, well, head on over to ratethispodcast.com/squawking dead. It's the perfect place to tell us. You could just leave us 5 stars and a pew pew.
Gross.
I'm still laughing over the just. I don't know, something about the way you said it was like goofy.
Just set phasers to
You
rate.
said phasers to
What?
He said rate, but it didn't sound like that.
Oh no.
It's like,
Oh, Bridget, no.
what? That's what
I don't
you
even know what
said.
the white
That's what you
vaudevillian
said theoretically.
villain. Okay,
Allegedly.
so let's start over.
Allegedly.
You could just leave us 5 stars and to appease Bridget. Pew pew.
Thank you. You're not appeasing me. It's the algorithm.
But tell us what you like. Tell us what you didn't like. Tell us what you think we might have missed. Just remember to tell us after every single episode. And I'm going to tell you right now, I wrote so much about Navajo mythology in my notes that we never got to, except for maybe the 4 stages of creation, blah, 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 the monsters being in the yellow world and the hero twins killing them.
Okay, well, like, don't cram it in now,
Okay.
Dave.
Yeah. But
He's like, wait, I wrote it. I've got to say it now. Hold on. I just need 30 more minutes of your time.
if you really
One
like what
last
you've
thing.
heard, you can still get the notes that I may have left on the table. After this is done, by tipping us, you'll get 30 days of access to not only our unedited episode recordings, but my pre-squawk insights, which apparently at Real Ryan GM really likes. He's our one and only great M tier member. When I forget,
Aw.
he says, hey, where are those notes in PDF format on
Aw,
Oh,
Patreon?
that's so cute.
And
I
I'm
love
like,
that.
I'm so sorry.
David,
I'm so
somebody
sorry.
cares what you think.
Let me
Aw.
upload it now, Brian. Oh, I'm so sorry,
Oh,
Ryan.
how
I'm so
nice for
sorry.
you.
That's so nice.
I haven't mentioned that. It's so sad that I didn't mention
It
that.
is very sweet that he does that, actually.
It is
I
pretty
love that.
sweet. Got my back, you know?
Maybe one of these days I should scan in all of my Walking Dead notebooks and post all my notes from over the years.
If that's a perk you guys want, we'll make it available in the shop. All the proceeds will go to the Starving Artist Fund. That is Cosmom09 Starving Artist Fund.
Chaotic.
Move me to Georgia is fund. And well, until that day comes, support the show, tip us, but consider joining a membership tier as well. You'll get more access to our Discord because tipping gives you forever access. Joining a membership tier gives you even more access to our Discord. If you happen to join the Whisperers, Survivors, or Great M tier, you will get a free classic t-shirt upon signing up. If you happen to join the Survivors or Great M tier, you can show up alongside our dumb faces throughout these episodes. Not these episodes, but future episodes.
Never these.
And if you join the Great M tier, you can get access to our core channel, be a part of our development discussions, all the private conversations we have behind the scenes. I've been your host, David Cameo, and I was joined by...
Cosmomom09.
Lazy Gardener.
And Bridget, you can find me at ko-fi.com/punkybrewster. That's PUNKYBRUISETER.
And thank you again for joining us on this wonderful journey throughout Dark Winds Season 3. We have no more screeners, so we're in the limbo zone. Dave has to do all the editing for every single episode and all the clips, and everybody else gets to take a little vacation for now. Or watch Severance, maybe.
Fine, I'll watch Severance. Jeez.
No. That's fine. You can watch it when we decide to tackle it. I'm not making it official just yet.
Okay, well, I'm going to watch Paradise instead then, because that
Paradise
piqued
is
my
really
interest.
good.
I will check out Paradise.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you in the next one. Hopefully it'll be just as exciting as it's crescendoed at the end of this episode. And you're going to find out more.
Oh, Dreamweaver.
I believe you can get me through the night.
The night.
Knock, knock, knocking on heaven. Yeah, wow.
What? Why?
That was a very good choice of song for the end of the episode.
Yeah.
Rachel just keeps. By the way, for the audio podcast, Rachel's been waving this entire time. You can wrap it up already. You can wrap it up.
I'm on Supermarket Sweep.
Goodbye now. Goodbye. Goodbye. I love Supermarket Sweep.
Me too.
I wanted to be on it so bad as a child.
Yeah.
I wanted to pick out my custom t-shirt to wear.
Oh, see, my thought was, when would I ever be allowed to pick out whatever I wanted in a grocery store? The answer was
Never.
Never.
Thank you again for making it to the end of another episode of Squawky Dead. This one discussing Darkwind's 6th episode of its 3rd season, titled Abidoo'niidee, which means what he had been told. I had kind of messed that up during the episode. That's why we're here at the end, correcting some of the mistakes we made along the way. But again, I thank you for making it to our discussion on Dark Winds, a series that we are taking a chance on, that we particularly love, and we hope that you love it too. As always, at the end of every single episode, we like to thank our supporters for getting us this far, without whom we would not be able to do this podcast. Starting with the Great M tier, we have at RealRyanGM on Instagram and X. In the Survivors tier, we have Douglas Atherton at Walking Dead Artist 2 on Instagram. Among the Whisperers, we have only at Kim.Rowley 1 on Facebook. As you may or may not have noticed, our supporters are dropping like flies. It's getting hard out there, folks, for many of you. I know that, which is why we always encourage you to either follow us on ko-fi.com/squawkingdead or patreon.com/squawkingdead, doing the simple things like liking a video, commenting, sharing our content, be they clips, full episodes, or otherwise, enabling all notifications not only on our YouTube channel, subscribing to our podcast if you prefer listening to the audio only, or watching it on Spotify video, but also on social media as well. You can enable post notifications on every sort of social media that I can think of. And best of all, it costs nothing to do and makes a tremendous difference. The more the world knows that we have an audience, the better visibility that we'll have to make this podcast self-sustaining again. Because it used to be. I know, I'm whining. Can't wait for you to listen to our coverage on the next episode, which is already in the can, just needs to be edited. We have yet to record our season finale thoughts. But until then, remember that we are Squawking Dead.